Raw edge applique is one of my favorite projects to do with sewing and quilting. Today is going to be so much fun. Our pumpkins, I still need to find a green for the leaves and maybe even the stem part coming out here. How beautiful that is. I love that so much. Why are you sitting on my head? So let's take a look. I found this in my closet. I'm absolutely in love with it. Does that or does that not look like a beautiful ghost? So we'll be doing a little bit of that for ghost. And this, I thought, no pumpkin is perfect. What better piece of orange for a pumpkin? Because again, you've already seen my scraps. We have those cut out for other pumpkins, but I need a total of 3 times 4, 12 different venues. And I've got a couple of different browns we've already done, but I thought I'd get a little strip of this, maybe a 2-inch strip, and we'll put some of the logs under the cauldron with this on it. So again, to take a picture of the cauldron, we'll have... Okay, so we take our fabric and we stretch it out and then fold it up on top of itself. So the selvage is above the end of our double-sided fusible. And we take it right to here, and we can either measure this and do it on the cutting board or simply pop your scissors in the corner once you have it lined up. Trim the excess weight off so it's not pulling and torquing and getting you off kilter when you're ironing it. Take your extra piece, lay it to the side. Now we can go ahead and iron this piece on, or we can go ahead and lay the next. I prefer to go ahead and pop this with a hot iron when we know that we're lined up all the sides. That way it's going to stay put and not move, and then I can trim it, finish ironing it, or go ahead and put on the next piece. So we're just melting it to this fabric real quick, and then we're going to go ahead and trim it off and finish pressing it down, melting it onto the paper. Use your instructions on your different fusible, whatever fusible you're using. I prefer, well, there's several different fusibles that work very, very well. This one, it's easy to go through with the needle, doesn't get gummed up. So that's why I'm using it. And now we can go ahead and iron down the rest of the fabric. And if I were putting a face on, I'd be putting it down, lifting it up. But since I'm not securing a face down and it's just a full sheet, I can go ahead and move my iron across my piece without the fear that it's going to be moving it. And when I'm ironing it down, if I come across a place where you hear a little crinkle with a paper, that means that it's not been sealed down to your fusible yet. So you'll want to spend a couple extra seconds on that spot. Well, hello and welcome back to Where Wendy Creates. Today we are working on a raw edge applique, and I have 3 different oranges, and we're going to go ahead and cut out our pumpkins and start at raw edge appliquing our pumpkins. So we have our handy dandy sewing machine here. We have our fusible back on our fabrics. We have some extras for stems and other items that we're going to raw edge applique onto the same quilt. But today we're working on pumpkins, and we are going to go ahead and grab our pumpkin patterns, cut them out. I'll show you how we put it on it. You're going to watch it from start to finish, and you may be a raw edge applique expert before you know it. It is so simple. It is so fun. It is so exciting. I'm glad you're here with me today. So we do have our pattern that we put on our scrap paper that we've already used in the past. And now we have to decide, okay, are we going to cut out our pattern and use it, or just rough in draw it onto our sheet? And I think because we have one pumpkin sitting on the head of the other one, we like this size, we're going to go ahead and cut them out, and you can choose at home whether to free draw your pumpkins on the back, on the paper part, or whether to cut out a pattern, make a pattern on paper, cut it out. And once we cut this out, my friends, we can save onto this pattern, and I can make multiple Halloween quilts, or even bring it into my Quilters Guild or my friends that see the pumpkins and like them, and let them decide if they want to go ahead and use my pattern pieces to make their own. Okay, so we are trimming this out using our paper scissors, because we're cutting on paper, and even our fusible back, we still have the paper on the back. We haven't taken that off, so we want to make sure we keep using our paper scissors. Now, you may see me through this whole project using my paper scissors. That's because paper scissors get dull quicker using paper than it does quilter's fabric. So what you want to do is have a pair of scissors specifically for paper, because if your paper scissors get dull, you're not dulling your sharpest scissors. You're only dulling the scissors that you also use for paper. Now, we can cut out these shapes in the eyes and such, or we can trace them onto other paper, cut them out, or we can freeform them. So we'll decide that as we go along. Now, you see I still have my stem and my leaves, and I really love this frou-frou. And I have to decide whether I'm going to cut out the little strings on real thin fabric and iron them on, or if I'm just going to thread paint that part on. And I'm leaning towards real leaves, meaning green fabric, real stem, meaning probably a browner fabric, and then thread painting the rest of it. And we can decide what color we want, how live, meaning a light brown with a green type stem, or if we're going to go darker on the stem and the swirligigs, like they've been picked for a little while and they're not as fresh. Okay, so let's go ahead and decide which orange. So I have 3 oranges here. So I want to decide which orange I want which item on. And when we're looking at these, which 2 oranges do I want to use together? So this yellowish is kind of pow, but I love it. So I have to try it out with a pumpkin. So maybe we want this pumpkin on here and maybe this pumpkin on here. So we'll put this back in the stack for using with one of our other projects. And we're going to set this stack of fusible backed and our pattern for our cauldron. We're going to set it aside and just work on these 2 pieces on our crafting project, an upcoming tutorial using different on products. So hit that subscribe button down below. I've picked up a couple more tools for my upcoming trip. You might want to see that. But let's get back to our pumpkins. That felt like an advertisement, didn't it? That was weird. It just ended up on the table. It shouldn't have been on the table. But I am going to do a little tutorial over on Where Wendy Travels, because I've got a lot of traveling coming up, and I really needed a new battery charger. And we're also going to use it going out to Yellowstone. It's snowy, icy cold. The lows are in the single digits. So I need a little heater for my camera, for the lens. So that battery is going to hopefully charge that. We're going to play with that together, and I plan on making a tutorial on it, seeing how it works. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and trace on the paper. It's okay if we write on our patterned pumpkin. I don't mind that because I'm not too particular. You can put a piece of paper underneath you if you don't want to write on your table. Please, if you're working on your dining room table, put a sheet of paper underneath that. By the way, how do you like my new table? I'm so excited. Watch this. It goes up, it goes down. I'm so excited. So this was one of the Christmas presents I got from my husband. Finally got it put up, installed. Yes, months later, sorry. Months later, but we're on a roll. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finish. I keep getting distracted. We're going to finish drawing out our pumpkin. Do not trace and get this on your dining room table. That would be heartbreaking. And we're tracing these because I want my pumpkins to fit. Now, because I may not want this to be exactly lining up, I'm going to go ahead and extend this out a little bit, and that way my pumpkin can sit on top of him without me feeling like it's going to have any of the black in between the two. That's not necessary. So we're going outside a little bit just so this piece overlaps that piece. So, and the rest of it, we trim it out. I keep all of my scraps. I don't throw those away because it's amazing. Sometimes you just want a little crease, meaning I may want an orange piece going onto this fabric just being like the lines on him. So I'm going to keep all of these scraps. They work great as eyeballs, as colorations, and when I do a lot of thread painting, sometimes I'd like to have different colored fabrics there at the same time I have the different color threads. Okay, so we have him done, and now these beautiful faces are going to sit out here. We're going to go ahead and cut these out using my paper scissors. I am not going to take off the paper backing until I have that done because I want to leave this to where I can draw on it, make more pumpkins. Again, one quilt, I'm using 12 raw edge appliques on because I have broken down my quilt into 4 parts, and I have 3 raw edge appliques on each part of the quilt. And it's not necessary to have all 4 of those look the same. So we may end up with 12 completely different raw edge appliques on this Halloween quilt. So I'm so excited. This is one of those quilts, it is not done overnight. It does take a long process, and the process is incredibly fun, because I get to play with fabric, I get to play with threads, and I get to play with designs. Now, sometimes I am so stuck on making these designs, and Sylvia loves to draw. Sylvia's my mom, and she drew these for me, and I just fell in love with them because this pumpkin's like looking up saying, "Why are you sitting on my head?" But it's gorgeous. So sometimes I just need a little art inspiration. You can peruse online, look at different YouTube tutorials, look at different places that might have drawings of the item that you want. I don't trace them, but it gives me different ideas that I can take from and say, oh, I love those eyes. I have to do my eyes like that, and I'll try and rough draw them in. You see how we have this smile. We've done several different ways. Do we want teeth? Do we want no teeth? Now with the raw edge applique, if I have teeth in here, I'm going to have them possibly in orange or possibly a different color. So that's kind of exciting. So there's lots of different ways to play with your raw edge applique. And of course, that means that we're sewing on the edge of the fabric or near the edge of the fabric, and that it can fray a little bit over time as you wash it. That's okay, because the stitching is going to secure that down to the quilt permanently. So I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I did want to share some of the process with you. And the more you hear it, the more for me it sinks in. So, and we're just going to go ahead and trim out our other pumpkin. And then we'll have to grab a different color. We'll do his stem, his eyes, his face, and we'll get that going. And I have the large quilt block pieces that are whole quilt, meaning I think the sizes I'm using, I want to say, are 14 inches by 16 inches. And the other one is 10 by 10, which I've cut 11 by 11. I've added an inch to every one of them because sometimes in the raw edge applique, you're sucking in some of that, or you're tightening stitches. You don't want to be too low on quilt block, so I always cut it an inch larger on all sides. That way I can trim it to the perfect shape, and I'm going to use all of those trimmings in different upcoming projects, such as making snippet rolls for my junk journals, ties for my curtains, different kind of things. So lots of reasons and ways to use scraps. I always keep all of my scraps, but I cut them large enough that my quilt is going to be just as perfect as I want it to be, and I don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, what do I do? My block is too small now. Because again, it is common when you're doing raw edge applique that you are going to lose a good 1/4 inch on the overall block because those stitches are going to pull in. Now I'm going to show you the trick that I use to help from that happening, but as we go along. So let me go ahead, and you see the pumpkins start to come along. Let's grab and decide how we're going to do a little bit of the edge lines. Maybe I want to use some of my scraps right off the bat as some lines on my pumpkin coming down, so you've got the different color, or maybe I'll use the 3rd color for this so it's not overlapping. But see how he has lines on them? I can stitch paint them, or I can add other pieces to help create those lines. And then we want the eyes, the nose. He doesn't have a mouth, but I kind of feel like if I do some stitching down here, that's kind of like a mouth slipping under the dirt with him looking up and saying, why are you on my head? So it's kind of cute, I thought. Okay, so eyes. Let's grab a piece of black. We're going to do a big old cauldron out of this, so I know all of my edges I can use for the eyes, the nose, the mouth, whatever I want to use them for. So I want to waste as little as possible. So I'm going to think about these triangles with kind of sunken in here, maybe a little outward part, 2 sunken ends, and try and design some eyes now to mimic what these are. Worst case scenario, I cut those eyes out, I put them over here, and then I keep all of my pattern pieces in a Ziploc baggie so I can repeat that, that design. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to turn him right side up so I can get a better feel for him. And I want to create those eyes. We're going to go maybe a little indentation here. We're going to go out a little bit here. And maybe that's out a little too much. And back curved under. So we're going to play with that a few different times to decide. That looks a little bit thin on that part, maybe a little bit too high. So come over a little bit more and a little indent like so. So we can really decide how we want the eye, and then maybe turn it over backwards to make his other eye. So we can just cut that out and play with it. And see, I've written all over it. So, hey, Wendy, you've messed it up. No, 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 no. Pop those eyes on there. Ooh, what do you think? Not so bad now. My drawing might have been bad, but when you turn them upside right, it kind of looks like my pumpkin's coming to life, doesn't it? Okay, so let's go ahead and maybe use that same one for making a second eyeball. And that way we're wasting or using up as little as we can of the, oh, that's more triangle, but I think that's still perfect, of the paper. And then I'll show you how to take the paper off the back, how to iron it on. We're going to go through that whole process together. Okay, so I have my 2 eyes. Now again, if I don't like them on him, I can switch them up to the other guy and see how I like what looking like. Okay, let's cut the paper off of just the excess on the edge. And see, maybe I want one eye looking the other direction. So I think we're going to change that up. So maybe this eye be down here, and still if I put a little eyeball here, like he's still looking up. We're going to play with that eye a little bit. So I want the curvature to be on the other side, not that side. Okay, so let me draw this out real quick. Now, am I doing it on the same side or the different side? Let's see. And again, I have 12 blocks. So if I don't like the eyes on this pumpkin, there's going to be another pumpkin that I'm going to use them on or trim them to fit and work with that. So don't think any of these pieces that I do is going to have any harm or waste. Ah, that one's angling the right direction, just a little bit too large, so we can trim him down to fit. But that's much better, so this I will use on a different pumpkin. And now we want the nose, which is an upside down triangle, and the mouth. So we've got the upside down triangle here. We're cutting out upside down triangle. Huh. Let's cut the paper off the side. See how it's white? I don't want that interfering with my look, because only the black is going to be the end piece that we see. And maybe that's a little bit too pointed, so I can decide, do I want to use that as eyes on a different guy, or go ahead and trim it down to size? And I think I'm going to trim it down to size, so we're just going to cut off. And again, I save even the tiniest of scraps. It's crazy, but I do, because I can always use them again. Okay, so that's a little bit better to size. I like that. This eye or this eye. Kind of like this pair of glasses, that pair of glasses. So I might want to trim him down a little bit too. So we're going to come in here a little bit and just make him look a little bit smaller. Not sure. What do I got to do to fix him? I think he's just up too tall. And you can always fold them over on top of each other. See how the black is showing? I can just trim off that black if I want them the same size. And I think now I just want to get them closer to size. So just that little nip, and I think it's going to be so much better. Okay, imperfection is perfection, okay? Imperfection is perfection. When you're doing raw edge applique, you're having fun with it. You're making a fun thing. We're not going for precision here. Okay, so let's, and we really need those lines on him. Let's get that mouth. Wow, how do I make a mouth? How do I make a mouth? How do I make a mouth? I would like to maybe even have it, tough call, tough call. Maybe, and I could even have these eyes yellow. Like there's a candle behind them. They're coming out yellow like the sun, like shining. So we might do yellow on a different one. Or maybe even we'll change this around. But let's go ahead and look at that mouth. So how am I going to have a mouth done? Do I want the mouth out of black? Let's do a black mouth and then decide if we want to change it around. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this one out. And I want it approximately this length. So we're going to take that as one line of it up to the other side. We do have a nice smile on him going, so we want to keep that smile. So I'm just playing with the different ideas of how I want to do this. Okay, so I'm not sure what I'm doing here, but let's go ahead and cut it out. And then we'll go from there, seeing what it looks like on our friend. And we can use some of our ghost fabric, I'm thinking, for the inside part of the eye so you can see what direction they're looking. Okay, so here we have the start of a mouth. And then figuring out how to do teeth and an open mouth, a closed mouth. What are we doing? Okay, so I am sure you could create a mouth much better than I could, but then maybe we do a little thread painting around his mouth so it looks like it's orange. Ah, I use orange thread to go around these pieces, maybe at least the mouth, and that way you see more. So what do you think? Tell me your thoughts. Hit the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts. Am I going in the right direction? Okay, so we have our little guy. Now let's do our eyes on our big guy. And I really want to use orange, but I'm thinking I'm going to find the other orange color. We're going to get a Ziploc or sealable bag and put our scraps in because I want to keep those. Okay, so now let's work on the eyes for him, and he looks like triangle eyes as well. No mouth, just the nose. So the nose part on him is kind of a little better. I don't want to fit into my cauldron, so let's come over here on this corner, and we're going to work on this corner for this guy. Okay, so we want our eyes and our nose about the same shapes as what we have here. So we're going to take the nose, need it a little bit thinner there. I'm going to take a little piece out the bottom, and I guess we're going to somehow come across. And then for our eyes, we want about the same shape. And then turn that upside down to make the second eye. Okay, so let's cut these two out. And again, it just gives me a rough idea what and how I want to cut. Okay, so for the nose, let's try our nose out. And again, that is not what I drew on the back of it. But we're just getting a feel for how this bottom guy is gonna look. So you see him here, you see him here. And again, my friends, you decide what kind of eyes, what kind of structure you want. You can do this as fast, or if you really have some artistic skills in you, you can get this done a lot faster than I can. So I think this guy, his points are going up again for the eyes. Points up again for the eyes. Okay, and he's coming together. Now we need a little silver pop on there. Which part of the eye is going up, which is not. Silver pop, so looking up at the other guy. This one's kind of hollow eyes, so I think I might leave him hollow-eyed. And then I really want something down here, like the mouth is slipping into the dirt, kind of like here. And I can thread paint that, or we can add some more fabric, whichever you think. I think, or hit in the comments, and I'll try and catch it in time. Okay, so I'm excited. Are you excited? So now we have the first one started. Let's go ahead and look at the stem. So we have our pattern that had our stem on it. And then I don't have green out yet, but we're going to get some green. And we're going to decide what brown we want our stem in. I have different browns. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to use this for the stem. And for the stem, it just kind of goes up, has a little circle on there. So if I cut this off right here, cut it down for the stem, over for the stem, then coming back in and up. Okay, so maybe like so for Mr. Stem, and thread paint him in, and then we still have leaves and the thread painting for the rest of the vine to do. So I am very excited about that. I should have taken a picture of that before I cut it up. Let's go ahead and take him over to the iron. But first, let's go ahead and lay out his pieces. Okay, so with his pieces, this is double fusible back paper. So we're going to go ahead and open our scissors. We're going to take the scissors and lightly pull across it. We're going hard enough to cut through the paper, not enough to go through the fabric or even bother my finger. So just a little bit of slit. Stick our fingers under there, try and pull off the paper without the fusible coming with it. Hello, without the fusible coming with it. Some pieces are easier than others, trust me. Okay, there we go. And we're gonna put that in the trash pile. When they're too small, I can't recycle them because it's got like that plastic coating on it. Doesn't work too well. Okay, so he's ready to iron down. We're gonna do that for all of the other pieces. We just make a little slit. We stick our finger under it. The smaller pieces are harder than the larger pieces, but we're just gonna make sure we're pulling off the paper only and not the glue part on the pieces. So we're going to lay him down, take the next part, and I know my fabric pieces so far do not have the character of my pattern, but that's what thread painting is all about. So using creativity, starting from a pattern, that's why I'm okay giving away my pattern, giving away my ideas, because mine is never going to look like yours. You're always going to have a slightly different thought, a different concept. Your eyes are going to be a little higher, a little lower, a little straighter, a little roundeder. It's always going to be different. So it is fun to do raw edge applique, and I do this for the fun of this. I don't do this for anything but the fun. Yes, we already took that off. Okay, so let's do the mouth. And the mouth, I really have to think about this because I'm ready to glue it down as is and sew around it. But I kind of feel like I should be looking at some more pumpkins and deciding, am I doing his teeth right? But yes, when we carve out a pumpkin, the teeth that we're leaving there is the orange part of the pumpkin. So I'm kind of thinking that's good. And we can always put teeth on the bottom, but I think I'm going to go with him. Okay, so let's pop these off the rest of these pieces and go on over to the iron. Okay, so we have our patterned pieces that we've cut out. We have our pumpkin that we have cut out. And now we're going to take this, put it onto the block that we've cut out for it. And we're going to do a bunch of thread painting. I think that nose goes a little bit lower to the ground because, again, the mouth is kind of sliding under. We can change all that. It doesn't have to stick like that. But I am excited. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab that other piece of fabric that we're going to iron him on. And we're going to show you how we iron him on. And then we're going to show you how we sew it down. Okay, so some additional concerns when we're putting our pattern on our fabric is, remember, I have cut our fabric block 1 inch larger on all sides than I need it to be, and then we have our 1/4 inch seams. So pretty much 1 1/4 inches on all 4 sides are going to be trimmed off. So I have to make sure our pattern fits within the size, the section that we want it to be. And a little bit concerned, I've got enough down here. I come close to it up here. So do I want to move my pumpkins down a little bit, or how do I want to squish him so he fits so well? And again, I can move the nose. If we were closer than this on the edges, I could simply make my pumpkin a little bit smaller and still have the appeal and the look that I like. So again, a lot of size and measurement concerns when you're making raw edge applique. Okay, so we're back at the ironing board and we have our pieces. We've taken off the paper on the back. We have them laid approximately where we want them. And now we're going to go ahead and iron down the pieces. Now, once I place this hot iron on top of them, they will not be removable. We are using double fusible. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and place them down. And when you're using fusible, you never want to use steam unless they are the last thing or the permanent placement. If we don't use steam, we might be able to move them again, but if we use steam, it's a permanent fixture. So we would have to ruin it to get it apart. Okay, so we are all done. It is secure. And we are ready to go back to the sewing machine and start our fun. Okay, so now we have to decide if we have the right colors for creating our beautiful raw edge applique, because if we don't, well, then we might just have to get some right colors before we start. But I'm thinking this maybe for the twirlies. I've got the beautiful brown and a couple of different browns that I can use for the stems. So we're good on that. And I'm thinking one of these oranges, if not two of these oranges, should be perfect for our pumpkins. And we need corresponding bobbins to go with our threads that we're choosing for our project. Very important. Okay, so I think we're going to go with this orange for the top, this orange for the bottom pumpkin, black for the black mouths, of course. And then I think for the top here, we're going to go with brown. And I do have brown currently in the machine with a brown bobbin. So what I want to do is go ahead and do our stem with a raw edge applique sewing, and then we'll move on to the body of our pumpkins. All right, so we are going to go ahead and move our stitches over to about, let's start with a 3 width. The length, I'm probably okay close to the 3, just slightly under the 3. And we're going to move over to a zigzag stitch. So let's come back to our sewing and see if we can get him going. So we're going to start somewhere in the center here. I'm going to hold my 2 threads when I get started so I don't pull it out. So we have that. And what am I doing? I'm turning my length. No, I'm going to turn my length down to about a 1 because I want it a little bit tighter, not a satin stitch, but a satin stitch would pretty much be a 0. So let's go around the 1. See if I can get you a little bit closer to viewing for the camera and see if we can go ahead and go around. Now I'm going to go all the way around my stem twice, I think. So we're going to put it to the outside. It's going to give it kind of a rough edge coming into that pumpkin because, again, we are at a 1, not a satin stitch, so we're still on zigzag stitch. And we're going to go around twice, and then we'll bleed off and make some lines or some thread painting into our pumpkin. And see, I'm choosing to put the needle down on the outside of our stem. And this first go around is just going to secure this permanently around here. So after wash and wash and wash, it doesn't start coming apart. It's going to be permanently affixed with the stitches as well as the fuse. And I want my needle on the outside. And then I'm going to pick up my foot and pivot. Outside, pivot, and we're going to come back around. Okay, now we're to the part where we started. So I'm going to do this a little bit closer. I'm manipulating the fabric by pushing it in. I've turned us down to a 0, so the foot is no longer being pulled. It's only going with my movement. And I'm going to dial it down from a 3 to a 2. And I can do that one notch at a time, getting a little bit smaller and smaller. And then we can go off, do some stitches, go back up to the top, back a little bit wider. And we can turn it around. I'll show you in just a second what that is looking like. And I'm going to needle down, and then I'm going to dial it down to a 1 for the width, and I'm going to pull some seams or some stitching over here to make a little loop down the pumpkin. Now when I go back, I want to be in that same stitch, so I'm trying to make it in the same stitch line. And then I'm going to needle down, pull it up, zip around, pull it back up to a 2 width, go back up and around my pumpkin stem, back up around the stem. And I'm putting it real close now to a satin stitch, but I'm doing the 2 instead of the 3. Because I want it to look nice and rough. Okay, and I'm back where I started the satin stitch. So I'm going to pull it back up to a longer length, get down to this side, and then we're going to do another swirl off this side like we did over here. So I get the needle about where I want it, turn it sideways. I'm going to dial it back down to just about a 1.5 on the width, and then a 1. Go back that line. Now again, I can't see through the machine, neither can you. So if we're going backwards, it's our best judgment. And then I'm going to widen it back up to a 1.5. And I'm going to continue my reverse. Okay, so let's pull that out. I'm not done by any means, but I want you to see how we're kind of making lines out here. I think I'll do 1 down here, maybe 2 right in the center, and this one I think I'm going to tuck it in around here. So let's go ahead and do a couple more of those stitches. So I'm holding the thread, making it come back to about where it was. We're going to go down with a 1.5. And then I'm going to flip it back to a 1. I've gone over it a couple of times, hopefully to make it a little bit better there. I'm going to bring this one down a little bit longer. It looks like I did a V. I'm okay with that V. Okay. Now let's come around here. I want to do one over here and then down around like so. And we'll see how that looks. So let's dial it back up to a 2, get over where I want to be. Then we're going to dial it down to about a 1, back to the length of 1. Let's needle down. Looks like I came out of that. Holding my thread, don't want that bulking out. There we go, a little bit better there. And then we're going to pivot, and then I'm going to kind of whisk it around. And now, if I want to see and stay exactly on that line, I can needle up, pivot, and I can turn it around and go right back up that line. Let me see if I can take the camera and get you a little bit closer. Okay, so again, what I've done is I've lifted the foot, I've pivoted, I come right back around. You're just seeing at a different angle now. And I'm going to come straight back up that line. And when I get up here, I'm not sure where my line is. I don't trust myself to go backwards. Then I turn it around like this. And now follow that line down, needle down, foot up, pivot, and come right back up around, oh, and I broke my thread. But what we're doing is following those lines, making it look pretty. What do you think of that stem so far, huh? All right. Okay, so that sound you just heard was me breaking the thread. I've just re-threaded it so I can show you coming right back up that line again. And when you go over a line several times, it's kind of called thread painting because you're taking that fabric and you're covering it instead of with a paintbrush and paint, you're covering it with thread. So we're kind of thread painting. And you see how this, I did it on a 3 and then came back and did it on a 2, closer to a satin stitch. That gives it that rough, rough texture, like it's, you know, the top of a pumpkin. When you pick it up, sometimes it's got those little spiny feels to it. It's rough. So that was the intent there. So let's put our needle down again. I'm going to bring us up closer to the top here, and we're going to do a little bit of this pumpkin with the brown, and then we're going to go back and go around it with the orange. But I just want to do a little bit more with the brown before we switch colors. So I'm just going to go and paint it a little bit. And see how it's just a zigzag line? I've got to come back, go over it again. Maybe another couple of them over here. So let's go real fast across. And needle down, pivot. I want to come up a little bit, right in there maybe. Okay, so now we're going to dial it back down to a 1 length, about a 1.5 width. Now I'm at a 1.5 width. I'm going to dial it down to a 1. Now further, needle down, come on, needle down, turn it around. Now halfway I'm going to come back with a 1 and then switch over to a 2. Now I'm back where the 2 started. So I'm switching it, or 1.5, excuse me, 1.5. And then I'm finishing with a thicker. And then I'm going to go back over and do that another time. Like those thick bullets. So what do you think of my pumpkin? Let's call that done for just a second here. Pull it out, examine it, and decide whether we want more or not. I'm going to just trim a couple of threads here and then let you see it. Let's see if I can find you in the camera lens here. So what do you think? Does that look more like the top of a pumpkin? I'm loving it. Okay, so let's switch threads and start on our pumpkins. We could do the eyes next with the black, or we could switch over to one of the oranges and do our pumpkin. Let's switch to an orange and do that top pumpkin, shall we? All right. And we are threading our needle with our orange, and someone just asked me about my thread. First of all, this orange is a thicker thread than what I have been using, so I'm not sure it's going to play nicely with the rest of the project. So we'll check that out momentarily. But the needle I'm using is a 14. The Singer Heavy Duty machine recommends a 14 or 16 needle, and that would be your heavier cottons or going into your blue jean needles. And I like using those too because, well, look at what we're doing. We're doing one of those projects which makes sense to have that heavier needle because I'm manipulating the fabric a lot. I'm stitching over stitches and going through multiple layers at a time. Right now, just 3 layers, but you get my point. All right, so we have the orange thread in. I'm going to hold it. We're going to get started with about a 3, go around our pumpkin. Just trying to go right on the edge so that I'm catching the orange fabric, but also going into some of the clean black without overlapping. Or maybe the term is, yes, I'm overlapping, so I'm going outside of the orange with one stitch and in the orange with the other stitch. And you'll be able to see the stitches a lot better in just a moment when we get a little bit further in. Now with your sewing machine, you might be able to switch it onto a satin stitch or schedule it down to just above a 0. On a zigzag, 0 is a satin, but 0 also doesn't move it ahead with the foot, with the movers, so I am manipulating it myself with my hands. A lot of people ask me, Wendy, you are going so crazy fast. Do you have to go that fast? Absolutely not. You can go as fast or as slow as you want. I just seem to to like to go a little bit faster than most people do. But you see how smooth that's coming? Let's finish it up, and then I'm going to show you a closer shot so you see some of the threading. I like that rough, raw edge look. If you like it closer, if you want to do it wider, whatever you like, this is your quilt. You do it your way. But yes, maybe slower is accurate, okay? Slower is accurate, faster. You could mess up easier, but you do it your way. And what I'm trying to do is get that orange and the black, splitting that distance right in between that foot. Let's see how we did. And I'm going to pull this out. We're going to trim our bottom thread, trim our top thread, and let's have a look at our pumpkin. Looks like down below. I don't know why I'm getting some whitish on that. Maybe I was too slow and too tight in that spot. But it looks beautiful to me. And no, I'm not using any white at all. It's just pulling it from the fabrics and torquing it. Okay. I am quite excited so far. What do you think, my friends? Again, I wish that was a little more orange. It's kind of pulling the piece apart. So maybe I should do a little bit looser stitch. And we'll see how that goes. Again, it's a work of art, a work of progress. You're never an expert. You're always growing. Or at least I want to always be growing. Okay, so let's go ahead and swap orange threads and go on to our bottom pumpkin here and see if we can make him just as happy and perky. What do you think? Okay, so we've switched over threads for our second pumpkin. And now we're going to go ahead and go around him. I'm putting us right on the edge here, and we're going to start. Again, we want to keep the orange and the black right in between that foot. I'm putting the length of our stitch to a 0 so I can push it and pull it, manipulate it myself. And I'm going up to about a 3.5 width on the stitch. He's a little bit bigger pumpkin. I want a little bit bigger stitch. Okay, and hold my thread when I get started. Okay, and we are started. So let's go ahead and have some fun. It's a little bit slow process as you go around. But then we'll take a look and see how we like decorating him on the inside with the different lines. Since his stem on the top of the pumpkin is obviously broken off with the other guy sitting on top of him, we're going to give him a little bit more expression around the mouth, like it's just coming under the dirt. Some of that painting now, but I want to do it after. I think we got a little bit outside of our pumpkin, so I'm going to put a needle down on the outside. I'm going to flip us around and I'm going to go over that. So again, if you find yourself skipping a spot or going outside of where you want to go, you can put your needle down, flip yourself around, and go back and double stitch while you're in the process. No harm, no foul. Just that easy. And we're back on track. And it looks like I just gathered the fabric a little bit. Okay, we're right up at our other pumpkin. Trim our threads, take a look at what we have, and decide if we want to go. I think I'm going to use the same orange and give him a little bit of character right now. So I'm going to take him right up where he's at, dial him down to maybe a 2, and we'll do a little line here, see what we like, and go from there. And again, if you don't know or want to pull it back, you can always twist it around. Right back up that same line. Character lines, what do you think? Character lines. Let's give him a bunch more character lines. So on this one, since I have a different color pumpkin thread up here, I'm not going to go over that. I'm actually going to cut my thread, restart, and stop a few times. So I'm trimming my back thread, trimming my top thread, coming back over a little bit and giving him some more character lines. And I'm doing this on a 2 well, 2 1/4 width and a 1 length. And again, you can give him eyebrows, you can give him whatever kind of character you're looking for. Okay, once again, I'm going to cut my underneath, come on, let go, thread, and we're going to trim, oopsie, trim our top thread and give him some more lines. I'm going to go right in here and give him a couple right there. Now, I could be doing this in brown like we did the top, but with him having the black and the lighter colors, I think the orange is going to be just beautiful. I can just lift my thread without cutting it, come over a little bit, and go up the other direction. Needle down, foot up, pivot. Okay, now let's give him a couple on the other side. To make that one a little bit longer. I think we're going to go over this one again. Maybe a little bit wider up top. That was 2 1/2. Now we're taking it to 1 1/4. Turning around, going back up at 1 1/4. And I broke my thread again. We're going to rethread it, and then I'm going to come up the remainder of the way here with that 2 1/4. Okay, and I've been talking to you and you haven't been there. We changed the thread. I do anticipate it breaking, so that's not a big deal because I'm pulling and tugging and twerking on it quite a bit. And I just simply expect that. We're turning it back down to 1 1/2. Because I am manipulating the fabric. I'm going fast. I'm going over it multiple times. It's bound to happen. If you weren't pulling and tugging and torquing, it would not be happening. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull up our needle. Now, as you know, in several spots we didn't cut and restart our thread. So we have several threads here to go ahead and trim off. So let's see if we can trim those off now and see what our beautiful pumpkins are looking like now. Oh, we got to turn it around and do all of our half facial expressions and squishiness on the bottom. That I still want to do. Okay, so let's take a look at those lines and let me know what you're thinking. What do you recommend? Pop me down in the comments below. I'd love to hear. And see this right here? It looks like I've missed some of the fabric too. So we want to take that fabric expression, facial expression, and really get into here with multiple lines covering that up, making him look kind of squishy on the bottom. So let's go ahead and put him back under the stitch, under the sewing arm, and do that now. And I think we'll come at them from more threads. We'll come at them from 2 different angles here. So we're going to come over here. We're on a 2 and a 1. So let's just run back and forth a couple of times and just really fix that squishiness. What do you think? See, one line doesn't cut it. You got to go over that same line several times to get the effect that I'm looking for. Needle down, and pivot. On your machine, hopefully you have that fancy button where you can just hit needle down and it stays down. And let's go ahead and take it. So we want to go over the same line. I think I want to have one here and one here. So let's just turn that a little bit. Let's turn that around and go over that line again. And we've locked in that little bit of stitches that we didn't. Then we'll do a line out here and one maybe up here. And what should we do? What do you think? What are you feeling? Well, let's pull him out and maybe go over his eyes and nose and mouth on both of them and see how we're feeling. Now, the big debate for me at the moment is, do I want to go over the facial features with the orange or the facial features with the black? Let me get rid of that little bobble of thread down here. Looking through the camera to try and do, oh yeah, just didn't trim it. Okay. All right. I'm loving him so far. Let's go ahead and let's switch to black thread and then we'll go over his facial features. Okay, so we have our black thread in. I'm going to do a width of 2, a length of 1, and just zip around all of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and then take a look closer under the camera with you and decide if I want to do any more. Well, obviously, I need the eyeballs, so we still have to do the eyeballs. And needle on the outside. And this key here that you see me hitting is just the reverse key. Also make sure that your fabric is never tucked underneath. You don't want to be sewing 2 layers with it tucked under. That would be bad. You'd have to pull all your stitches. And we're doing tight stitches. So no fun. Well, I don't think it's fun. Some people like pulling stitches. It is part of the process. little bit about his mouth. Sweet. Now we're going to jump over to this guy, and I think I'm going to keep the same stitch everything. I'm going to say they're related. They're allowed to have same stitches. I'm so excited. Look at this. Nose. Now we start on the nose. Okay, looky, looky, looky. Okay, we're going to trim our threads from the back, pull us out, and let's go ahead over here. Take a look as I pull out our threads. Not pull out our threads, I meant trim our threads. Everywhere we go from one feature to the next feature, we need to cut that thread in between, and that's why you saw me hitting that back button several times. I'm locking in my stitches, even more than I need to, but that's because we are planning on washing this quilt time after time after time after time and having this an heirloom for generations to come. Okay, I'm liking the bottom. I love my face. Okay, and look at him. He is not scary. He's just maybe a little doofus up top. I love him. What do you think? Okay, my friends, we have just completed our second raw edge applique. The first one that we did was the broom. So now we have done our pumpkin, but take a look at this. See this bulk that's coming out from the side? Where I'm putting my hands down, you can hardly see it, but those of you who know fabric know that this has been manipulated and torqued out of place. We're going to spritz it with a little bit of water. We're going to iron that out, and then we're going to trim it to our perfect size. Remember, I told you that we had an inch over on all sides. We're going to trim it up and put it in our Halloween quilt. Thank you so much for joining me today. And the cauldron. I want to do probably the cauldron next. I may get crazy and draw up a cat or a witch's, different larger witch's broom or something else, witch's shoes, witch's hat. But I think we have done a great start, and we have more pumpkins to do because I need 12 different blocks, and this is the second of 12. Have a great day, my friends. See you real soon. Hit that subscribe button. I want you back here enjoying these.